which is awfully nice. You can offer some suggestions as well. My name is Gregory Wright, or Greg. I'm located at Snow College in Ephraim, Utah. It's a two-year college. Um, we have been doing Ethics Bowl here, I think for about 12 years now. I had no idea what Ethics Bowl was until Karen Mizell at UVU told me what it was, and so we started a team. Um, I didn't know how to coach at all. I mentioned in the session at the ABCs that the first competition we attended with the Wasatch Regional, we met as a team twice. The second time was the night before the competition, and we spent the hour looking at CakeRecs, WRECKS.com. It's a website with really bad cake decorating. So I didn't really know what I was doing. Um, I do have some questions that some ideas of things that were helpful for me over the years. But let me start with, are there any questions that any of you have, or do you want me just to go through some of the things that I have first? Okay, then. So one of the first things that I found to be really difficult was finding students to make up a new team. Um, this is different depending on whether you're in two-year college, four-year university, whether you're doing high school ethics bowl. Um, but it's always kind of tricky to find students initially who want to participate in the ethics bowl. Um, so some places to start might be honors programs. Those students are usually really engaged. They care about the academics and they really want to participate. So consider tapping into honors programs. Um, I also consider and have used as an idea of just asking my students in the classes that I teach. I identify students who are good critical thinkers, students who like to read, students who write well, because students who write well, can read well, usually are able to think critically and put arguments together. I don't limit my searches to just philosophy classes. I also teach freshman composition, and some of the best students to participate in Ethics Bowl I have found in my English composition classes. Um, and so look wherever you can find them. Um, Probably your best recruiters are students who have already done Ethics Bowl, um, or they will invite their friends. So really smart critical thinkers usually hang out with other smart critical thinkers. So always encourage your current students to invite others. Um, we've tried here at Snow College um, student life and advertising it through student life. We've offered pizza. We found that to be a bad idea. We spent a lot on pizza, and then the next meeting we had, I think, one person from the 35 that showed up. So I usually reserve the pizza until later in preparing as a kind of group bonding thing. But offering free food at the beginning, we didn't find that to be too useful. Um, okay. There's some things that I tell students once to try to recruit several things. It's important when finding students and coaching students to let them know what the benefits are that Ethics Bowl brings. And I do believe the benefits are greater than the cons. I think that there are some cons, but you can mitigate those. So some of the benefits I talk about are it's a great academic experience. Students will develop lifelong friendships with the people that they can compete with. Um, Also, it looks good on transfer applications, graduate school resumes. I tell them this looks really good. And I also tell them that for a two-year school, you can transfer to a four-year school, and sometimes there are scholarships for people who do ethics bowl. I know I had one student who was trying to play Richard at Weber State against Rachel at Utah State to try to see if he could get a scholarship. In the end, he went to Southern Utah, so it didn't work out for him. Um, all right, cons. It can be a lot of work unless you have a class, an ethics bowl class. So I have to tell students and work with students, this will take some time and effort over the course of the 2.5 months in preparation for the regional bowl or the month and a half before the national bowl. Um, um, I also tell them, though, that their studies are most important, the studies in their major. You don't want to have a student who is just putting all their time in ethics bowl, but they happen to be failing, the other three classes that they might be taking. So those were some of the benefits and the cons that I have. Any questions so far?
Could you explain that second con? I wasn't quite clear on what that meant.
Um, so about the classes.
Yeah, I think I just missed the first part of what you said, or I didn't quite get it. Like I get the part about, um, like just like the sports, you don't want it to like take priority over your classes. But was there something else you said at the beginning?
Yeah, so the three that I always mention are it will be a lot of work. But I find that students will quickly find out it's a lot of work, but it's work that they're willing to put in because of a lot of the benefits. Um, there are also the amount of work can be mitigated if you have an ethics bowl class. So I know some institutions, they have a specific class for ethics bowl. That way students can get some form of credit. Um, and so if you have a class that meets, 3 hours a week, right there, they know they're signing up for at least 3 hours a week to do ethics bowl. Um, I've always found too that students who put in a lot of who are putting in the time end up doing even more outside of our meetings. They want to talk about ethics bowl. They want to talk about cases. And then the last thing I said was make sure that the students are focused on their studies. Um, and ethics bowl, unless it's a class, is something that's extra. So having a student who's putting a lot of work into ethics bowl and failing, three of their four classes they're taking is not a good look for everybody else on campus. The math teacher is contacting me saying, our students failing in calculus, and the history teacher is doing the same thing. And I have to make sure to let students know ethics bowl comes second to your own studies. Did that answer your question? Anybody
Yeah.
else? Any other questions?
Do you have a class at Snow, or are you doing it as a completely side activity?
We don't have a class. Trying to figure out. We usually have a brand new team every single year. We might have one student who has been doing it before. If a student signs up for the ethics bowl class and then finds out 4 weeks in, hey, this is too much work, I'm going to drop. Or 3 weeks in, a student invites one of their friends who wants to get into the class. So we're trying to find a way to make the credit work in terms of 1 credit, 2 credits, 3 credits, that kind of thing. But we don't have one. I know a lot of 4-year schools do have one though. David, did you have another question?
Yeah, mine was more about, I guess, um, I don't know how it works at every college. Like, I think at a lot of colleges, like organizations like this, if you wanted to have like an ethics bowl organization, it would have to be officially like student run, right? I think it's that way at my institution. So how do you I guess you have to identify a student willing to take on that role, or how have people gone about that?
Excellent question. We um, we help facilitate, but the students really, really drive it. So um, myself and my assistant coach, we both love Ethics Bowl. If students want to meet 3 times a week, usually we're like, okay, we'll find a way to
Okay, I
do.
can't get it to work.
So, but the students are making those decisions largely. And usually 4 weeks in, we usually identify, okay, this is who our captain is going to be. And the captain kind of will keep everybody in line and help to assign roles, those types of things.
So at our school, we don't have a student-run organization, and maybe it's not officially an organization, but we just view it as one of the things housed in our department, right? So it's assigned to a faculty member, and then when I can, select a student leader if there's someone that stands out. But it needn't be a student-led thing, right? There's different institutional paths to having a program.
We kind of look at it as an academic team. And so if you think of a team, there's a team captain, but just like there's coaches for the football team or the basketball team. We're just doing it for Ethics Bowl, but we'll let students take charge and kind of direct it.
Greg,
South Texas.
do they pay you like the football coach? Because
They
at
don't.
our school, the football coach makes 10 times what any faculty member makes.
So
Awesome.
it's, I wouldn't want that actually to be paid. In fact, I was offered a stipend. I actually said no. And the reason why I said no was because if I say yes and they're paying me, they can take it away from me. And so I didn't want that possibility. I didn't want it to be assigned to somebody else.
I have, this is Karen at UVU. I have a few thoughts because when Richard and I first started looking into Ethics Bowl many years ago, it was hard to find any kind of support. But the clubs at UVU, so at UVU, the way the student constitution or something was written, the clubs had a lot of money. And so if I could find a student who was interested in starting an Ethics Bowl club, then you have a faculty advisor, you have to have a faculty advisor, but they would very often have money for travel in the end. So sometimes there are just ways your structure is set up, your institutional structure is set up that will generate, some side benefits for your students. But clubs did work for us for a while, but it's tricky because you never know whether or not you're going to have another student who wants to find 6 students who want to pay dues and get into a club. But that was the beginning of Ethics Bowl at UVU. So,
South Texas.
I was wondering the class like this would be a class that students would pay for, like just with normal tuition.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. I don't know, but like, would the tuition go to fund the ethics bowl organization itself, or no? Okay,
No, usually with a class, there's, they pay for it, they take it, and there's credit attached to it, right? So student takes the ethics bowl class, they get 3 credits. Um, I think that sometimes that class might be just an elective. Sometimes it might be um, used as, at least here at Snow College, it could probably be used for humanities credit. So, offering, giving that to students for as just a regular class is something that a lot of schools will do. Good question. Rachel.
I wanted to just, since there was some interest in the class there, doing ethics bowl as a class, I just want to draw your attention uh, to the schedule that there's a session that I'm going to lead. It's 4A, session 4A, that's specifically on ethics bowl as a class, which we've been doing at Utah State recently. So thanks so much, Greg. I just wanted to add something to the recruitment piece that I've been doing that's been, I think, just very effective as a bit of recruitment, but also is just helping me and my students, I think, to flourish. And I just kind of tried this and it worked once, and I've been doing it ever since, which is when I'm making the sales pitch for why do Ethics Bowl, I do all the standard stuff about the activity itself, but then I also let the students know that this is an opportunity to find a mentor. I think that lots and lots of our students are hungry for mentorship and they don't even know that they are, right? Like they don't even really know. We focus so much on outcomes in the education system, on test scores and grades and stuff, that I think we sometimes don't pay attention to what is one of the things that's really valuable about a college education, which is finding young people, finding older people to help guide them and whatever. And so I say, if you do Ethics Bowl, it'll give me an opportunity to spend a lot of time with you, to get to know you, to know your goals and what you want in the future, to know what kinds of things interest you. And that's been really effective. And then what I find from there is that a lot of people that I've then tried to forge those kinds of relationships with, it really has turned into a mentorship. And I'm working with them when it comes to getting into graduate school and things like that. So that's another tool you might use in recruitment. And I tell them, and I don't want this to seem quid pro quo, but I tell them I'm also in a much better position to write them a letter of recommendation because letters of recommendation are more effective when you can say very specific things about the students, right? And you're in a position to say more specific things if you know them better and you've worked with them in this kind of capacity.
Thanks, Rachel. Okay, so I've got students. Some questions to consider. How often do you meet? I mentioned earlier that a lot of this is determined by students. We try to set a set time where we'll meet on these nights from these times. Usually we'll meet at the beginning of, as soon as cases come out and we've got students. Initially, the students usually want to meet twice a week for about 2 hours each night. The closer we get to a competition, students actually want to meet more. So we'll usually do like a Saturday morning. Ephraim's a really small town. I live about, half a mile from campus. So, and I'm willing to come and work with them on Saturday. My wife doesn't like it too much, but she's kind of gotten used to me being gone on Saturdays. But usually that's like the month before the competition. We'll use it for practice. We'll use it for scrimmages, possibly. But I've also found that there are lots of informal ethics bowl meetings that I'm not aware of, where students will get together in the library for 2, 3 additional hours a week. We actually had four members of the ethics bowl team move in together. Um, so they live together so that they could talk about ethics all the time. So I know some teams will do it differently. We'll have a set every semester. We're doing it at this time. And if you can't make that time, then you're just not going to be able to participate. That's really difficult for us here at Snow College. So we try to be a little bit flexible with students and their schedules. Okay. Once we also have a team. Oh, Matt, you got a question?
Yeah, so Greg, as you said, the Snow is a 2-year school. I know at one time there was a 2-year ethics bowl, but I think John told me that it was absorbed into the greater IAB. So I take it you're competing with other 4-year institutions. I also teach at a 2-year college, Mississippi State in East Tennessee. How do you acclimate and get those new students up to speed fast enough to compete with the 4-year institutions, with the juniors and the seniors? Is it the Saturday sessions? Is it convincing them to move in with one another? Or how do you do that consistently?
So a couple of things. Thanks for the question, Matt. There is a 2-year college bowl.
Oh, okay.
It is under the IEB umbrella, so it kind of serves as its own region. It's the Saturday before the Thanksgiving break. So we try to move it around the country so that as many schools can participate as possible. And we'd love to have you, Matt. So,
And then does the champion then go on to compete by B, or is that just it? You just got the 2-year
yeah, the
championship?
champion of 2-year bowl gets a bid to the IEB Nationals. Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you.
What was the second part of your question?
Well, I'm teaching at the 2-year school. You've always have new students. You have so much turnover. They're no more than a sophomore at most. It's difficult to get the new students to acclimate to philosophy in general, let alone ethics bowl. What strategies have you found especially effective to teach them the method as quickly as possible so they can compete and participate competently?
Yeah, so we will frequently have students who do not have never taken a philosophy class, never taken an ethics bowl class. So they need some of the basics of moral theory or moral principles. There's a really wonderful book that I'll use with students called Ethics in a Nutshell, which happens to be your book.
Well, thank you, Greg. So nice to visually, virtually meet you. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So
Quick plug for that. I use that book as well. It's a great primer to get things going with your new ethics bowl team.
Oh, that was not a setup. No, we did not plan this whatsoever. You guys are very kind. Thank you.
yeah, if you guys, I recommend Ethics in a Nutshell. I mean, it's not very long. It gives just basic overview of ethical principles, a little bit about different ethical theories. Not very long, easy to read. Students can usually read it in one sitting. So I'll use that book for students who have absolutely no formal background in ethics. Okay. And any other question?
No, that was it. Thanks so much.
Okay. All right, we got a couple of comments here. Alan says the official meeting about 2.5 hours. Okay. Yeah, other informal meetings. So one of the things that we will do also is there's 4 people that teach philosophy here at Snow College. We have 1 utilitarian, 1 deontologist, 1 virtue ethicist, and an existentialist. And so students who are interested in a particular case and they want to use utilitarianism, I say, okay, go and talk to this professor. or go and talk to that professor, depending on an ethical theory that they might want to explore. So there are a lot of informal meetings with professors that are one-on-one that take place during office hours. Okay. Labor. So this one is tough. How do we divide up the labor between students? We will have students who want to participate in Ethics Bowl but do not want to compete. And so we let students know, hey, if you want to be on the team but you don't want to compete, we still want to have you. You can help us with research. You can help us with practices. You can help by asking questions. So having students who don't want to compete but want to participate, they're a good source of picking up some of the slack or heavy lifting, I guess, at times. We also will divide up the cases based upon student interests. We don't have a whole lot of philosophy majors here. So if we have an engineering major and there's a case that has to do with engineering, it's like, hey, this is, he'll tell me this is what I want to do because I have a background, I'm interested in it. So we go off of what student interests are. Ultimately, there's going to be some cases, though, where people don't necessarily have an interest. Those ones I basically have to assign to people. Or what I'll do is I'll assign them to two students. So here's this case. You might not be interested in it. You might not be interested, but we have to put it together. I'm going to ask both of you to work together. I find students working together as teams is much more efficient than students who are doing things individually. Um, okay. Yeah. We usually have, 4 to 6 people who end up competing on a team. And then usually we have 1 or 2 who are interested in ethics but don't want to compete. So they'll come and help out. Okay. So what do we do in a typical meeting? So this depends. Thank you, Olga, for the question. This really depends on what part of the preparation we're in. So we'll usually do some basic ethical principles with some past case studies. This is before the cases come out. Once cases come out, we'll still do a little bit of ethical theory and ethical principles. How might they apply to this case? And then the closer we get, we will take usually 2 cases per meeting, and we'll just go over them thoroughly. Okay, what information do we need to have to better understand the case? What ethical principles or theory might work best for this? We, as coaches, I know some schools are really kind of hands off where there's a coach, but they're more of an advisor. And so there's a student who's basically running everything, and the advisor just checks in every once in a while. Because we're a 2-year college, we're a little bit more hands-on. And so when we do individual cases, my co-coach, we're asking them questions. We're trying to push them to consider alternative perspectives, to help them try to refine where they're going. Once we get closer to the competition, we'll do practices almost every single meeting. We will sometimes split the students up into 2 teams. But one of the things that we'll do more frequently is my co-coach and I will serve as a team against the students. And we'll just do that a couple of times. But almost at the very end, we're doing scrimmages against other teams, or we're doing scrimmages to involve alumni from Snow College. We'll do past alumni. We'll zoom in and they'll do a competition against previous Snow College Ethics Bowl students. I think that's a really helpful way to get students and alumni together. to see, hey, we can do this. Other snow colleges students have done it and have been well. So those are kind of the things that we'll do during our meetings. We are really kind of hands-on. Um, we also have to be careful if we are more hands-on um, to ask the students and kind of force the students to be critical thinkers. There are times where they like, hey, we're going to adopt that, what Dr. Wright is saying. This would be really interesting. So um, we try not to do that, but sometimes students will surprise us at a competition. And um, if they take a really wild position that they heard from me and my co-coach, that's usually not good. So like, I don't know, using Buddhist ethics to talk about a river, that didn't go too well. Actually, I think Rachel might have been judging that one. Okay. There's some important things that I tell my students before they go into competition. First, they need to have fun. Winning is great, but it's not the end all be all. I mean, the goal is to learn from each other, to get to know each other, to go deeper into these issues, um, have fun. If you don't win, that's perfectly fine with us. We're not so focused on winning. It's great when it happens, um, but we let them know this isn't going to be about winning. If you win, great. If you don't, enjoy the experience. Um, I tell them that they cannot assume what the question will be because when you go into a competition, um, the questions could be very narrow and focused in a case, or they can be really broad and general. So we try to prepare students when we do practice by asking a narrow question, but also asking a broad question. Judging. Students can get really agitated by judging. Why did we get that low of a score? Or we thought we had that one and they went the other way. Um, Scoring is so subjective. And I have to remind students like you might have faculty who are philosophers who are familiar with these principles, ethical theory, but you also have people who are lawyers or doctors or business people who might not know the theory, who might not understand the principles that you're using, and so scores can vary, uh, but you have to allow for that, and you need to be cognizant of the judges and what information they might need that you have to provide. Um, Judges can also be graduate students. I think we were at a competition and they were short a judge, and so they found a cashier who was working in the cafeteria and said, "Hey, would you be a judge?" Um, so you never know where the judges are going to be. Um, the last thing that I'll tell my students, and this is about participation, having a good time, and winning. Whether we win or lose doesn't matter to me, but I don't want them to feel ashamed or embarrassed. So I ask that they put in a minimum, um, more than a minimum effort in practices, in scrimmages, so that they can go in feeling confident that they can answer the question, even if they don't answer it very well. Um, so that's kind of the last thing I do is like, I will help you so that you have some preparation. You might not win, but you're going to represent yourselves well. All right. Any questions? We've got about 7 minutes.
So yeah, Greg, there was one in the chat way up that was embedded in a longer series of questions, but I think is really worth talking about. What do you do to get team consensus, right? The students come from different backgrounds and perspectives. I think every coach handles it differently.
Um, so what we'll do is we'll ask, you know, this person or this small or this group of students have, one idea, and these ones have a different idea. We'll ask students we'll put them into groups. Say, how are you going to argue this? What's your approach going to be? What's your argument going to be? Put that together. Other group, you're going to do the same thing. And then you're going to present, this is what we ought to do. Other group says, no, this is what we think would be best. And usually they come to some sort of consensus when they hear their teammates giving, the alternative. If there still isn't consensus, then we start asking them questions. What about this? If you considered this, the probably the best thing is asking them to provide alternative perspectives. How can you see this other position? How would you address that position? And so, that's another way is to ask them to focus on alternative perspectives and how they would address. Usually the students will come to some sort of agreement. It's been pretty rare where that's been impossible. So you build team cohesion in the beginning by having them meet and getting to know each other. That when we start looking at individual cases and positions, there should be some cohesion where they're going to work together and come to some sort of conclusion. Alan.
Yeah, I would just add, kind of harkening back to one of your earlier benefits of Ethics Bowl, is if they're friends with their teammates and getting together, then and they're kind of having a friendly conversation, I think it's a little bit easier for them to actually come to a consensus. I know that's not always the case. Sometimes I have a team that doesn't know which way to go, and then they kind of come to us as coaches and say, give us some guidance here. But I think as long as they're doing kind of getting to know each other a little bit outside of your official meets, or when they're getting together and having a friendly conversation about it, or just an interested conversation, they'll usually find that consensus, even if it's not real strong. It's at least there usually.
Thanks, Alan. John.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what you, Greg, or I guess what everyone thinks about the idea of really de-emphasizing the position altogether, at least during some of the early stages of analysis, where you try to focus on getting them to think about what they see as some of the key concepts and some of the key tensions. Because I found that when they do that, they kind of realize that, the cases are supposed to be structured, right? So that reasonable people can disagree, and that to some extent, your actual answer is the least important part of your analysis. So do people think that sort of gets in the way of developing good arguments, or do you think that's a helpful way to get them thinking more deeply about the cases?
I know with us, we've got 2 hours and we've got two cases. And there's sometimes where in that 2 hour block, we only spend time on one case, where we go through it pretty thoroughly and ask a lot of questions. What do we need to know? What question could be asked? How might you approach this? What are the alternative perspectives? What are the different perspectives? We also will look at stakeholders, so who has a stake in the case. Usually we'll do that. We won't get to, okay, what's the argument going to be? What's the position going to be? That usually takes place when we talk about a case for a second time. So we'll go through all the cases first. We will, I had a student call them baby cases, like this is my baby case. where students, a group of students or an individual students will look at a case. Um, um, Here are the questions that I came up with. This is the information I think we need, and present it to the group. And then when we talk about the case a second time, which is usually 2, 3, 4 weeks, sometimes later, that's when we put together, okay, what's the argument going to be? Anybody else?
I don't know how to raise my hand. Could I ask a question? Just to just general attitudes toward ethics bowl. So I think of it as a wonderful discourse model for teaching, so students have some autonomy, and most of you do that too. But one thing I've run into recently is genuine pushback on the fact that it's considered a competition, an ethics competition. And I wondered if anybody has any thoughts that they could share about that.
Can you can you elaborate, Karen? Like there's pushback from who on that it's a competition?
Well, it was a revelation to me. Several people have tried to soften the notion that it's a competition, it's because we're trying to avoid debate and we're trying to encourage people to talk to each other, engage in a sort of community of ethical inquiry. But I've run into I actually think a paper that I submitted wasn't accepted because I later realized this person's a circle of the global community who do not like, and they're very angry about these ethical discussions turned into a competition. It's actually pretty intense. I was surprised that there was kind of some anger, and it was very obvious to me that there was a split among educators about this. So I just wonder what you think about it.
Well, actually, if I can jump in, that's one of the things we're going to spend a decent portion talking about in one of the tracks, which is the role of the competition and the impact that it has in the bowl, the values of the bowl, and how we are approaching thinking about how we engage with students, given that it's partly competitive and also partly educational. So put a pin in that and more to come.
Thanks, Deborah. Thanks, Karen. So we're out of, well, we got like 1 more minute. Um, Karen, students care about winning. And they see, at least my students, they care about winning. They see it as a competition. Um, our 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 campus, our community here see it. I mean, they celebrate when we win. Um, Winning, I can say this is winning is the best way to get funding for your program. Just, I mean, that's when my president finds out, when the deans find out, hey, our Snow College team, won this regional or whatever, they're more likely to say, hey, this looks good for our school. This is a great opportunity for our students. We want to give you some money to help us with travel. So winning is important, but I also have to emphasize it's not everything. So, um, Alan, do you have a quick
Yeah, just
comment?
a quick comment. I think it's also important to recognize that just like you might grade a paper with a higher grade, with an A or whatever, but you might disagree with the position that a student has taken. The same thing can happen here, where a judge could give the win to a team they disagree with because the team was just clearer in their position, and they considered the other side in a deeper way, and so it just because it's a competition doesn't mean it's, you must adopt this particular view in order for me to give you the win, kind of a thing. So something to keep in mind, I think.
Okay, thank you. We're out of time. I did put my email address in the chat. If you have any comments, questions, feel free to email me. Um, thank you for attending the session. This has been really nice and great to see everybody. So, all right, we'll let you go to the next session. Um, take care, everyone. Oh,
Nice job, Greg.
thank you. There's a lot to cover.
Yeah, no, you just all you can do is here's some highlights. There's, hours of stuff to talk about. So next up, Frankenstein.
Yes.